Hello! Welcome once again to Northworthy Sagas and Stories. As always, I am your host, Tyrkir. Please feel free to leave a comment, smash the like button, and don't forget to follow us on Twitter. Now then, I've been travelling in the last few days and enjoying the hospitality of some good friends and acquaintances. And indeed, hospitality is extremely important in the lands of the north, because there's often a very long distance between one settlement and another. And when travelling between towns and villages, one can often be extremely grateful of any house that will offer bed and board for the night. It can make all the difference between being forced to camp out in the wilds, which can often be unsafe with wild animals and outlaws. And therefore, that's where the story begins. A request for hospitality made by a traveller. This man, well, he was working his way up north, and it had been a fair day's journey walking through the woods, the hills and the dales, but now the sun had sunk in the sky, and night was beginning to draw in, and therefore he was very grateful to see the golden glow of firelight pouring out of a doorway halfway up the hill in front of him. He went up, introduced himself, stated his name and his ancestry, and having established his credentials, he asked to sleep the night. Now, the lady of the house, she clearly wasn't keen on having him there. However, she could hardly refuse such a common custom of the time, and she was obliged to bid him to enter her home, to provide him with a nice hot meal and a beaker full of mead. And then his bed was laid out for the evening, and he was just sitting there, finishing the last of his drink, and he went outside to the cesspit. And when he came back, for it had taken him some time, he heard some sounds going on in one of the buildings near to the farmhouse. So he went to have a look, and there he could see the lady of the house rummaging in a chest and pulling out a sealed horn that obviously contains something valuable. So he stayed in the shadows, waited and watched until she returned into the farmhouse. Now the house itself is a large one with a very high roof ridge, and this will become important, as you will see. Now the woman, she sat down and she opened up the horn, put her fingers inside, and took out some ointment, some salve. And this salve had been prepared with henbane and many other ingredients. She rubbed it into her legs, and then she climbed up on the edge of the firebox and stood astride a besom, a broom, the brush of which was made from wooden twigs bound together. And as she did so, those rough wooden twigs, well, they grazed her skin and allowed the ointment to rub itself into her skin even further. And then, after some time had passed, she spoke these words: "Up here and out here, and away to Snake Farm." With those words, the broom rose into the air. she flew all the way up to the ceiling, and then she vanished through the gap at one gable end, just beneath the end of the roof ridge. Now the traveller, well, he'd seen all this go on, and obviously by now it was plain to him that the woman was a witch. But he believed he understood the way the spell worked, and he took his walking stick, and having helped himself to some of the salve and smeared it on his own legs, he sat astride his walking stick and he spoke these words: "Up here and down here," and he tried to remember the rest. Snake Farm, that was it. Of course, yeah, he realised this meant hell itself. So, he spoke again. Up here and down here, and away to Snake Farm. But far too late, he realised he'd made a mistake of some kind with the words of the incantation. For as soon as he'd finished, the walking stick flew up in the air, all the way to the roof, and then straight down again. Then up, then back down, and it carried on like that for half the night. He had no choice but to hold on to that stick. He daren't let go, for fear his brains would be bashed out on the floor. After a while, he started to feel dizzy. He felt quite sick. And then, fortunately for him, one of the old woman's serving girls came in, and she said, "You got the spell wrong, didn't you? I bet you said up here and down here. That's quite wrong. No wonder you're going up and down. Up here and out here." So, that's what he repeated. Up here, out here, and away to Snake Farm. And with those words, off he flew, through the gap in the gable end, and off to Blarkulla Mountain. And when he got to the mountain, there he saw the old lady of the house, and many other old women were with her. And it was obvious that they were all practitioners of the diabolical arts, because they were dancing around, hefting great knives, and they struck each other with them. They inflicted terrible wounds, cut right down to the bone. Some of them even lopped each other's arms and legs off. And they laughed. They treated it all as a joke. In fact, they sang out, "Hack today, hold tomorrow." And as soon as they said that, their wounds started to heal up again, and they carried on playing their grisly game. Now, the traveller had learnt from his experience with the walking stick. He knew by now how important it was to get every word in a spell correct. And so, having heard them, he waited until they cut and maimed each other with those knives yet again. And before they could speak their own spell, he stood up and he spoke these words: "Hack today, hack tomorrow, and hacked forever and aye." And with that, the old women reeled about in pain. They staggered off home, and their wounds never healed. And that was the end of the witchcraft problem in those parts forevermore. And for now, that's the end of the story. Thank you very much for listening. And don't forget to click on the notification bell. Don't forget to subscribe. Thank you.